So I came to the pro-life position as a 16-year-old, which I guess a lot of us had that shared experience of 16 years old, like life-changing moment. Where, you know, I grew up in California where it's like everyone's a feminist, everyone is progressive, it's just kind of like a given, right? Like if you care about human beings, like that's what you're going to be, and if you're those things, also you're probably going to be pro-choice. So I was pro-choice, and when my boyfriend turned rapist threatened to kill me if I didn't have an abortion, that was really the moment when everything clicked in my head, when I realized that what he was telling me was, you're an inconvenience to me, you're an inconvenience to my future, and because I'm bigger and stronger than you, I am going to kill you. And I realized that I couldn't be like him, that I couldn't use this philosophy of might makes right, that I couldn't use violence to get what I wanted in life, that, even though I was a straight-A student who was on the path to, go into an Ivy League school, that regardless of, what sort of ill might come to me, that I realized that I couldn't use violence to achieve my goals. And really, like, how contrary is it to the principle of human rights to say that, because I'm bigger, because I'm stronger, that I have the power to make the choices for a smaller human being, for a smaller, weaker human being for that matter. So like for a progressive perspective, like as a progressive, as if there are any other progressives in the room, you probably believe that, like we want more human rights for more human beings. And that's just like a pretty bare bone thing. That's the progress that we're seeking, right? Is like more human rights for more human beings. When you think about it that way, it really only makes sense that as a progressive that I should support the right to life being respected for more human beings, for the preborn, for the prenatal human being, for those inside babies like Evie over there. Yeah, so that's my take in a nutshell.
Heathen's turn. I'm just saying. So hi, I'm Albany. I'm the atheist. I like standing out. Don't judge me. So I'm going to give you a super fantastic, too long didn't read version. So when I was 16, tra-la-la, I was pregnant with my then boyfriend. Got pregnant from my then boyfriend. It's amazing to think I do this for a living, isn't it? It's not well. When I told my dad, he told me immediately I would have an abortion. I asked him if I could adopt. He said no. I wanted to keep my baby. He said no. Abortion was the only option. So I scheduled my appointment with Planned Parenthood, and this Planned Parenthood did not perform the abortion. They simply performed the sonogram, find out how far along I was, where I needed to go. They estimated 8 to 9 weeks, and when I asked if I could see the screen, she told me no, that there was no reason for me to see the screen. I wouldn't be able to see anything, and that was that. I was 16, I was terrified, and I was not as strong-willed as I am now. So I ended up going through with my abortion, which is a whole other long story. But to deal with that, I was very vocally pro-choice for years and years. And so to me, during that time, pro-life meant you were scum of the earth. You were always an asshole. You hated women. You were just, in general, bad people. You didn't care. And I had convinced myself it was a choice that I wanted, because that was the only way for me to get out of bed. When I was 19, I became pregnant again with our eldest, who just turned 7 on Monday. Oh my God. And I remember going in for my 8-week ultrasound or sonogram with her, thinking it was ridiculous, because I remember the woman told me that there was nothing to see. So when I looked up on that screen at 8 weeks exactly, and there's this little body and a little head and these little nubs for arms and legs and 160 beat per minute heartbeat, my entire world broke. Like, there was nothing in me that could prepare me for that moment, because it didn't matter what anyone told me. It didn't matter what what lies there were. I'm not saying lies on pro-choice or pro-life side. I mean, just in general, it did not matter what anyone said. This wasn't emotion. This was facts. This was biology in front of me, a human being, and I had to think back 3 years ago what had to have been terminated. And for me, it took a long time. I went through the steps of different type of pro-lifer and how I felt about people, and 7 years later, here I am, and pro-life has meant a lot of different things to me still. And to make this quick, pro-life to me is pro-love. I've had an abortion. It doesn't matter if it was a choice that I wanted or not. I had one. I have no room to judge anyone who has an abortion, or if you're abortion-minded, or if you have 10 abortions. I will not think less of you. None of us will think less of you. Because to myself and to all of us, it is about loving you as an individual, as a community. We loved you as an embryo. We're going to love you at 75 years old. It's that simple. And you know, kind of bringing in about what each of these mean for us as an atheist myself, to me it's even more about the science and the biology of it and the consistency. My daughter that just turned 7, she was the exact same human she was at 8 weeks in the womb. No one would ever fathom thinking that it'd be okay for me to end her life now. And for us, that's really what it's about. It's about finding the true equality in all human beings, regardless of our vulnerability.
Operating on the one. Oh, yeah. No, I need the exercise.
All right, wow. So our next question is, what inspired you to form your organizations? And does your organization work on any other life issues besides abortion?
I can go first. So, yeah, I think my organization, we work to challenge both the pro-life movement and the feminist movement because we see inconsistencies on both sides. And there's a lot of great people in the pro-life movement who are out there, you know, boots on the ground, serving women, loving women well. There's a lot of groups that are just talking about the political side of things. And for us, that's kind of an issue because when we focus so many resources on cutting off supply without addressing demand, that's a problem because, you know, just saying, okay, abortion's illegal and you can't have them anymore, does anyone in this room believe that they would stop? I mean, I think most of us know better. And so we have to look at the demand. What is it that's driving women to this place in the first place, to the fact that so many of them feel like it's a necessary evil in their lives? And if we can address those needs, and so many of them, as Cessilye said, are these systemic issues. It's the fact that, you know, maybe she doesn't have health care, or she's going to be kicked out of her home, or, you know, the guy took off. Like, there's so many different things where a woman feels totally alone. We actually just started a chapter down in Argentina where abortion is still illegal. And they had a big referendum come up, and, you know, everybody, both sides were out there warring, and they decided to keep it illegal there. And a part of me was afraid that our club would kind of go away down there because, you know, it's not really in the news and what can they do. And the coolest thing happened. We watched this group go into the slums of Argentina and find women because they knew that whether the supply was there or not, the demand was there. It's still an issue. There's still women who are going and trying to access unsafe abortions because they are so desperate. The desperation of a mother who has 4 children and can barely keep them alive. And so the answer is not that any of these children have to die. It's let us help you find food for these children and for the child growing in your womb. And I got a call from them this week because there was a young Haitian woman who was over there, found out she was pregnant, the boyfriend took off, her dad kicked her out of the house, she was completely on her own, and they said, so we just started walking with her and trying to figure out what she needed, and all of a sudden she went into labor, and they were the only ones at the hospital with her when she went into labor. This woman would have been completely alone. Sometimes it's just that simple, being there for a woman, whether she's abortion vulnerable or not. This is somebody who still needs our love and compassion and help. And that's why we say that we are, you know, we follow the consistent life ethic. So this is a matter of whole life and the whole scope of someone's life. And wherever they're at, wherever that need is, you know, we have gone down to the border to try to support families who are getting out of detainment down there. And You guys, this is the closest I've come to burnout, being an activist, when we got back from that weekend down at the border and the stuff that we saw, because we all see these images of, children in cages and the foil blankets and stuff. The detainment centers that they're going to after that are even worse. So these charities that they're at, where, they are doing everything in their power to help these communities, but they're sleeping on these thin mats, 2 to 3 people, a mat, and children on top of them, and piled into just like storage rooms almost. And so we said we want to do something. We want to do something tangible at the border, and we raised funds for diapers and underwear and shoelaces, because they're treated like criminals. Their shoelaces are taken away as soon as they go into detainment. So you're watching people just shuffle in, and many of them have lost so much weight they don't have clothing. And so we had taken a lot of children's underwear, and one of the volunteers came and got it, and they said, we're actually going to take these to the men because the men are so small from, not having access to food. And everything about it was incredibly heartbreaking. We took breastfeeding supplies and formula and just stuff to love on these mothers with. And so it's kind of funny because we hear this narrative and you see the memes, which memes are facts, right? We all know that. So you see the memes where it's like, oh, where are the pro-lifers now? Like, I don't know if you guys just aren't down at the border, but we're there. We're there. The Catholic charities that are running these institutions and these refuge centers and getting health care and all these other things, like, that is absolutely where they're at. You just have to look for them. And so we found that the more we are consistent, and we don't just keep our activism to, resource centers for pregnant women, but we actually go this broad spectrum of loving people well. Like, there's so much need out there, and there's so many different ways that we can help as a pro-life community. So just like we challenge the feminist side to be more consistent when it comes to nonviolence and caring for women, we're also challenging the pro-life side to be truly pro-whole life and not just focused on pregnancy.
Okay. So I started Rehumanize International because I came to understand that a lot of pro-life people really lacked a solid foundational understanding of why they were pro-life. And I don't mean like opposing abortion because it kills a preborn human and like that was it, right? I mean, like, why do we care about the fact that abortion kills a human being at all in the first place? Like, why do we care? And I care, of course, because I believe that every human being has inherent dignity. And because we all have this inherent dignity, that we all share in this human equality. It's why I'm a feminist. It's why I'm progressive. And so we started Rehumanize International to really help people have productive conversations about this ethical philosophy that is called the consistent life ethic, where we consistently support nonviolence towards each and every human being, with the understanding that because we all share in this human equality, that every act of aggressive violence is contrary to this dignity, is contrary to this equality, that any act of violence is an act of discrimination against a certain human or group of humans. So with that in mind, we said, okay, like, how are we going to talk about the consistent life ethic with young people? There wasn't really an organization that was doing it back when we founded the organization in 2011. And when we founded it, I wanted to make sure that it would be the sort of organization that I would feel comfortable in. Back when I became pro-life at 16, when I was and still am queer, but also was an atheist at 16 and was and still am progressive, because I didn't feel like there was a space that existed like that in the pro-life movement where someone who was like me at 16 would have felt welcome. So I wanted to make sure there was a space for that, because if we truly want to end violence, if we truly want to end abortion, we need to make sure that everyone is on board. You can't, of course, you could make it illegal with, approximately half the nation believing that it should be illegal, but you can't truly make it unthinkable without everyone believing in that inherent dignity of human beings. So that's why I founded Rehumanize. So obviously, like, as a consistent life ethic organization, it's actually like very clearly stated in our mission statement that we exist to bring an end to all forms of aggressive violence against humanity. And that includes abortion, but it also includes the death penalty. It includes euthanasia, torture, unjust war. It includes human trafficking, police brutality, abuse of all kinds. I'm sure the list could go on and on and on, unfortunately. But, you know, so when it comes down to it, you know, like, we have campaigns against nuclear weapons. We have campaigns against, you know, the use of the death penalty. We have campaigns against, of course, abortion, but also, you know, we really strive to educate people on these issues, on the underlying philosophy, and then to have productive dialogue with people. You know, whether or not I agree with someone at the end of the conversation is really unimportant to me, as long as there's this shared respect. Because ultimately, you know, my philosophy is useless if I don't live it, right? So that means that when I'm having discourse, when I'm having dialogue with people, that I'm recognizing their inherent humanity too. So, like, I could be talking to someone who's, you know, super hawkish when it comes to war, thinks we absolutely should be a first-use nuclear nation. And I still have to remember, like, oh man, like, you want to incinerate half the planet, and I'm still trying to respect your inherent dignity. Or for someone who, like, I know that people generally are not pro-abortion if they support it, but I cannot tell you how many people have been harassing me online in the past year who are vehemently passionate, you know, like, yeah, abortion's sacred, abortion's wonderful, it's great, it's not a necessary evil, it's a positive good. When I talk to those folks, I need to make sure that I'm respecting their inherent dignity too. So it's a lot of different things, you know, like, when it comes to the issues, and one of them is just rehumanizing people on both sides of the dialogue. So.
Y'all making me go last. I can't keep up with this. I can't match up. You can go first next time. We're going to keep this short. I started Lead With Love because I got sick of people not living their pro-life words. It doesn't matter how pro-life you are in this room. We have all seen that pro-life person that is a keyboard warrior, and they will never do anything but sit behind a keyboard and call people baby murderers and how you're going to go to hell. We've all seen them. And I got tired of it. And for years, so I run a Facebook page that I've been working on for like 6 years. And in those, probably 4 of those years, we raised $25,000, $30,000 for just random things. It started with pro-life, and I say pro-life, not even talking about abortion, just for people that already had kids, or moms that they've never had a baby shower, or they needed their dishwasher fixed. And after those years, I was like, that's a lot of money. I want people to really obviously know where it's going. So I went through the process, got it in, 501c3. Haha, there we go. Yeah, this is clearly what I should be doing. Thank God for accountants, right? But that's why I started it, because I wanted people, I won't say it was entirely selfless. Like, I want people to see we are not just pro-lifers that don't put our money where our mouth is. Like, I will absolutely say that. Like, I want people to see that pro-lifers, not all, but most of us, will genuinely give you the shirt off our back. We will go out to Walmart and spend money that we don't have on stuff for you. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. And Lead With Love is actually not, I don't have anywhere in my bio or the description of my organization that has anything to do with abortion or pro-life. Even though to me it is pro-life because it is a whole life, it is about anything to help anyone. We are small, but we've helped people with rent, we have helped people travel, we've helped people get passports, we've thrown more baby showers than I can ever count. But that's what it's about. And it's just like everything else, it is about the dignity of all humans.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Oh.
Oh. So for this next session, there's definitely some hard topics, right, that are brought up often whenever discussing these issues that people go to right away. So for the sake of time, I'm going to ask maybe each of you to answer one of those hard topics. And the first one I have, I think I'm going to direct it to Destiny. Sorry, girl. But especially, and you've kind of answered this in different ways already, but there's people, of course, that say opposing abortion is inherently misogynistic, right? You've already talked a little bit about that with your feminism, but especially on bodily autonomy. Whenever people are talking about bodily autonomy, that's a huge issue, huge word for today. So if you want to address that real quick.
Yeah, so I think my issue with bodily autonomy is, when does it begin? Does it magically begin the second that you go through the birth canal? Am I a human being then? Science would tell me otherwise. So for me, when I really started kind of dialing back this issue and realizing at what point is the unborn child my property? Because that's what we're saying it is. That's what abortion allows, that this person is my property because I'm bigger and stronger and they're weak and vulnerable and voiceless, then I can do what I want with them. And I'm like, okay, that sounds really familiar. Like the whole reason I'm a feminist, because I don't believe in that type of philosophy, right? Because men are bigger and stronger and held most of the power and the money and the status throughout history. They have been able to treat us like property and use violence against us when we were inconvenient. And we couldn't do anything about it because, as Aimee said, you know, it's the epitome of might makes right. Because I'm bigger and stronger and you're weak and vulnerable, I can do what I want, you can't say anything about it. So if that's something as a feminist I oppose, then how can I turn around and pass that very same oppression on to an unborn human being? It doesn't compute for me. It's not consistent. And I believe that my feminist rights and my privilege is something that I have to use to help weaker, more vulnerable human beings. And it doesn't get weaker and more vulnerable than the unborn human person, who is literally voiceless and statusless, but does have a body that I believe should have rights over. You know, I think that this is a human being, and, you know, with any other vulnerable subset in our community, the solution is not, oh, kill them. You know, that's not how we deal with poverty or homelessness or anything else. We say, okay, if you're weak right now, that's when we're going to be strong. That's when we're going to come in and use our strength to protect you. And so as a feminist, I fully believe we have to do the same with the unborn child. Yeah. I think that's...
What resources and help do you recommend for post-abortive women?
My area.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of different resources for women that have, did you say post-abortive and abortion-minded women, or just post-abortive?
I said post-abortive, but if you want to talk a little bit about abortion-minded, feel free.
Let's do it. So I'll do a post-abortive first, since I'm post-abortive. I actually used to run, it wasn't a legit nonprofit, but I did have a website. It was called reclaimingabortionrecords.com. And 3 years after my abortion, or not 3 years after, I'm sorry, 19. So 3 years after becoming pro-life, so I was, what's math here? I was roughly 22. I went to Planned Parenthood in Greeley, Colorado, and I went to reclaim my abortion records because I felt that I had found healing. I actually had tried to go to a place called Rachel's Vineyard, very, very popular, large Catholic post-abortive healing program, and they turned me away. And it was really unfortunate because I know they're an incredible organization that help post-abortive women. They have beautiful retreats. I just happened to have a woman that woke up on the bitch side of the bed that morning. That's just the way it was. She was very cruel to me. And I had to find my own healing. So I was like, you know what, I want my records. I want to hold those papers and have it in my life. And I went to the Planned Parenthood. Super awesome people. By the way, I'm going to say this, especially the Planned Parenthood group up there. For the most part, I have always had a great time at Planned Parenthood with excellent people. Outside of my situation with the clinic where I had my sonogram and where I had my abortion, I've gone to Planned Parenthood for birth control. I've gone to talk about just anything with the lady kits. For the most part, I have run into amazing people. So I went up there, and I was nervous. It had been years. You know, I've been vocally pro-life, and I've gone and spoke at colleges. And I was so scared walking in there. And the moment I started talking to the woman, I felt super casual, super at ease. She asked why I wanted my records. I said they were just my personal use. She was great. I got them. She the Planned Parenthood that I had gotten my abortion at was torn down to make like a mass one. It's like the 3rd largest in Denver now. So it took a minute, got my records, walked out, and I sat in my car, and everything was fine. And I was scrolling through my papers. I don't get emotional a lot. This is where I actually have human feelings. There was a sonogram. It's weird, I've actually told this like a lot. It was the first time I'd ever seen my son that I aborted. And it was like reliving seeing my daughter's sonogram all over again, realizing what I did during my abortion. And it was like starting all over with healing. And so I went and started a website where I could help women across the U.S. reclaim their abortion records if it was going to find healing. And I try to make that very, very clear, because sometimes that can actually hurt women more. Like it did me. I was not prepared. What I want to say, though, is I really think the pro-life movement, and none of us are shy about saying areas where the pro-life movement needs to do better. And truthfully, post-abortive healing needs to do better, too. And I'm saying this from a secular perspective. We don't have a lot of options for secular women. And that sucks. Like I said, Rachel's Vineyard is a great organization. Most people I know that have been there have had a great time. There's a Silence No More, post-abortive women that go and speak out. There are options, but there's not options for everyone. And, with abortion-minded women, this is like a whole other topic where, like, I'm going to keep it as short as possible because I know we don't have a lot of time, but that's honestly probably the biggest area where we have to get better for abortion-minded women, because just as Destiny's been talking a lot about, Cessilye, Aimee, everyone, where do we start? How can we reach every woman and let her know that she's not alone and that we can help her with the reason that she's choosing abortion, whether it's pressure, finances, she already has kids. I've sidewalk counseled many times, and I've always done it with love. I absolutely detest people that go out there. Sorry if this is anyone out here, but I cannot stand people that use graphic images outside abortion clinics. I am so against that. I can't tell you how many women that I speak to about ready to go have an abortion or schedule one because they already have kids at home. Over 60% of women that have abortions already have a child. They're not ignorant to it, and that's something we have to stop. But we need options. We need more, and someone else can continue. I can't. Or we can do another question. Thank you.
Something that we see a lot is that a woman who's had an abortion is expected to do the pro-life side or the pro-choice side. So she either has to be just sobbing and full of regret and it's the worst decision she ever made, or she has to be on the pro-choice side where she's shouting her abortion and it's the best thing she ever did. I've yet to meet that woman. I've met a lot of women who have shouted their abortions, but when you really talk to them, they'll let you know that there's some mixed feelings in there. This is not an easy choice. It's something that is very difficult for so many women. And I was recently talking to some friends in San Francisco, and they were telling me the story about a friend that they had who had an abortion in her teen years, and then her life kind of spun out of control. And she went to therapist after therapist after therapist. And with each one, she would say, I had an abortion. Could this be the root of it? And they would say, no, 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 no. Because, of course, their mind, abortion is not a big deal. It was a big deal for her. But what they ended up doing unintentionally, because they wanted to validate her and affirm her, was they ended up unintentionally gaslighting her and basically telling her, no, this wasn't a problem at all. And finally, 10 years down the road, after she had experienced drug addiction and alcohol addiction, she went and saw, I can't remember if it was a priest or a pastor, but it was somebody, clergy, and said something about, yeah, I'm going through all of these troubles, and I don't know, I had an abortion, it could be that. Because by this point, she's been told that it's not even a big deal. And he responded, of course that affected you. That's literally all he said. And this woman felt so validated by someone saying, of course this affected you, and validating her emotions over her abortion, that it was the beginning of this journey of healing for her. So when we allow women to express themselves honestly, and we don't push our agenda on them, that this has to be the best thing that ever happened to you or the worst thing that ever happened to you, but we can just listen to their stories. At the end of the day, I am a feminist because I don't want a woman to ever be in bondage. So that means I don't want her chained barefoot and pregnant to a stove, but I also don't want her in emotional bondage from an abortion that she can't get over because everyone on each side keeps gaslighting her and not letting her feel her feelings. So I think pro-voice hotlines and websites are pretty amazing, actually.